This is your market update for Monday, May 4th. All right, we're going to get started with the S&P Cash Weekly chart. And again, we did meet a major target this week, and it was from this major swing, high to low. We met that 1272. If we do continue higher, the next level on this time frame chart is going to be that 74.25 or the 1618 extension target, which is also target number 2. All right, now let's move on to S&P Cash Daily. And again, just a reason to ratchet up the stops when we have time resistance like this. I mean, it's still a bullish market, still a pattern of higher highs and higher lows. Still have all the averages on the side of the bulls. You're above the 200, you're above the 50, and the 513 is still in a buy mode. So again, just a reason to ratchet up stops. If we do pull back, we will set up the pullbacks again until they don't work anymore. But one of the things that's going to be really key on these charts is going to be like where you have the symmetry. So like the largest declines have been relatively small in this chart. They're probably easier to see on the 120-minute chart. But if you decline for more, and I mean by at least a decent margin, than the prior larger swing within this uptrend, that would be the first indication that we might have more important high in place, but we have not seen that. Yeah, so if we take this, this high to low, this looks like it, well, I'm not sure, it might not be the largest. Gives you 71, 71, 55. Let's try this high to low. Okay, so it looks like this is the largest decline within this uptrend. Okay, so if we broke 71.37 by a decent margin, that would be an indication that we might have a more important high in place, because otherwise, what are we doing? We're setting you up on the buy side again, especially against symmetry, until it doesn't work anymore. All right, how about, let's see, the June contract. Now, we have finally met target 1 in the June contract. I wasn't 100% sure if this was it, but that's why I had to do a separate one here. So off of the January 28th high to the March 31st low, this is the 1272 target. Now, typically, I will also run targets from some of these smaller swings or swings inside the swing. So that's why you'll see other extensions that are close by. But this is, this was the actual target number 1 of this major swing. Now, I'm not going to run all the levels from this high. We'll do the symmetry on the lower time frame chart, but you can see this last setup where we had right here, that was what? A royal setup. Remember, the royal setups are some of the highest probability setups. The only time where you want to be more cautious with them is if you're getting close to a major target like we are here. But yes, we will still set it up on a pullback. I've already started doing the work on the 120-minute chart. Whoops, we've gone through a little bit already. But here, we'd start by looking at this support. If we continue to stay underneath this high, early next week, then these would still be important support decisions. Now, if we make a new high, they will have to be recalculated the next morning, by Tammy if she's, taking over the charts in the morning, okay? Anyway, we do have other areas to watch. And then as far as, there will be some of you that may look at the sell side. Why? Because, we had time and price at the last high. And are there setups here? Well, I bet you there are. You take this low to high, project from here, this low to high, because I think I already saw this one in the room. Yeah. So not only you have symmetry resistance there, let's see, there have also been some other retracements that would match up. Let's get rid of anything we went through. So it looks like there was a few other retracements that would have been near that symmetry resistance here, okay? So anyway, different time frames are going to give you different setups. So if you were watching the trading room at the end of the day, it looks like you had one on the short side here in S&P. But just remember, whatever time frame you decide to trade, the levels define your risk. All right, how about Nasdaq? So Nasdaq, oh yeah, and don't forget that, yes, we do have, this was the end of the timing window, 29th through May 1st. So you know, again, the reason that we are ratcheting up stops, and also the fact that, you know, we're very extended. We've extended these minor swings. We've also extended a major swing. All right, let's take a look at Nasdaq. So Nasdaq timing also, what we had there is the 29th through April 1st. And again, just a reason to ratchet up stops, because this is still a bullish chart. It's still a pattern of higher highs and higher lows. You're still above here. The 200, above the 50, 5 and 13 had crossed to the upside here. So remember, you know, the 513 is not always going to keep you on the right side, but it's extremely helpful, especially for markets like this, because if you only set up the buy side after we had this crossover to the upside with the 513, I think you would have done pretty well, right? Anyway, that's just something that I like to watch. And as far as the June contract, yeah, I mean, I could show you that we've met some targets, and we have a couple other targets up here, but I can't give you the pullback yet. We don't even have a pullback to set up the pullback. We barely have one on the 120-minute chart. Okay, so I'll probably look at this Sunday before I put the charts up and see if we've had any pullback by then. But again, ratchet up stops on long positions, and then we'll set up new buys on a pullback until they don't work anymore. And then as far as IWM, okay, this is an example of another beautiful royal setup. Okay, why was it royal? Because when we had the pullback into support, we were above the 200, above the 50, and the 5 and 13 were already in buy mode. Okay, so these are the higher probability trade setups when you have all the daily averages in the right place. But here, you know, we're close to an important target off of this last low. But if you can push through it, target 1 off of this particular setup is 282.35. Second target is 285.62. But, you know, easy. When you see this, a royal setup, and you see it trigger, it's definitely worth looking at. Okay. Now, as far as the diamonds, we had another setup here. And again, I don't know if we're going to make the full target. But we had, what, a 236, I think a 50%, and a 1618 extension from this little low to high swing. But hey, it was a cluster, and all the averages were on the side of the bulls. It has rallied $12.93 so far. Now, are we going to definitely meet this target? No, not necessarily. So you still want to, you know, trail up stops as you go. But if we're still above here, and we still have higher targets, do we want to look at the lower time frame chart and possibly set it up again? Yes, absolutely. But ask us next week for that. And then as far as Bitcoin is concerned, so, you know, 786, we did have a bounce. I wasn't, you know, really calling this a cluster. I mean, if we would have included these levels, we could say, oh yeah, there's at least 3 levels. But bottom line, I didn't think this was that tight. But here, we held the 786 and our potential upside target. So from this high to low, that comes in at 813.25, and then we have a couple of other price relationships that come in all the way up to 816.13. So this is what we would be shooting for off of this last low as far as a potential target. And how much did we rally since then? 42.90. Okay, I'm still looking at some higher targets. We do have price above the 50, and the 513 is in a buy mode here. I don't think that the 200's on our side. Nope, 200's nowhere near on our side. We're still below that. But the fact that the 513 was bullish and we shifted to higher highs and higher lows is the reason why we've been looking at some of the buy side stuff. All right, let's look at the other charts as far as Apple is concerned. So we had earnings, and let's see, we don't include overnight data on the stocks because it really messes up the intraday stuff, and you know, it's just a mess to look at. So now that we have data again, we do have new support. 278.09 to 278.35, 275.73 to 276.52. Now, if you wanted to include that 50%, you can. But bottom line, I like this area, and I like this area because of the symmetry. I mean, of course, this too, if it would go that low. But again, it is still setting up on the buy side in Apple. And where was that 200 on this one, though? Damn, I don't have enough bars again. Anyway, let's move on to Amazon. So Amazon, you know, we never had the perfect hit of the weekly support. I think we might have had some stuff on the daily, but look at where we're at. Almost target one off of this major swing, 275.63, so be aware of that. And then as far as here, well, it's a little bit hard to get the targets off of this swing. So to really see those internal swings, if you look at the 30-minute chart, there's a high to low. Extension targets are here. I also just ran this low to high for possible resistance, and we did have a symmetrical projection. Like this rally was 17.25 points. This was 17.16. Very similar, okay? And it did offer resistance, and you did pull back from there. But I'm not running the short-term charts on here. I just wanted to show you the targets, but we'll have short-term charts up for you on Monday. As far as Google, bigger picture, you know, we had earnings there too, and great, you know, 513 still bullish, so could we reach target 2? Possible. But, I mean, when you've met a major target 1 already, you know, you probably want to have, you know, relatively tight stops, right? Okay. And then, you know, the way you can do this, again, is just have go to the lower time frame chart and then place a stop underneath one of the prior swing lows. You know, you can only decide how much you're willing to risk, right? So could be really tight, or it could be, you know, much lower. As far as Nvidia, okay, these are two zones that I like. We do have earnings coming up, but not until the 20th. So 196.53 to 198.70. Oops, we went through one of my zones. So 197.47. Oops. All right. There we go. So we have that one setup zone. The second one is 193.36 to 194.45. Those are two solid trade setups. Okay. Now, are they also royal setups? Well, we're above the 200. We're above the 50. 5 and 13 is already in buy mode. So yes, if we hit and hold this area and triggers, is this a royal right now? Yeah, if it hit here. Now, if it trades down here and the 513 cross back to the downside, it will no longer be considered a royal setup, but you know, we have to see where the averages are. But again, I do like these two setup zones. For a decision, you can see if it triggers an entry. I mean, we certainly don't have one yet on a 30-minute chart. Be patient. Tesla. Okay, so remember, this was the first time that the 513 had crossed to the upside since back here. Or, you know, when it crossed to the downside here. Okay, and that's why we're watching this pullback. Now, so far it's holding, and if we continue to hold above this last low, my target 1 will be 421.59, and let me see, it's hard to see target 2 because it's probably overlapping the other extension. So high to, right? Okay, so it looks like the other area is inside of here, 432.69, so that would be, oh wait, or is it this one? No, it should be right in here. It's like 437.25. Okay, so anyway, those would be the upside targets off of this last low. And, you know, obviously, you know, we can look at the pullbacks for you early next week. As far as gold, we are getting a bounce off of some support here, but the averages are mixed. We're above the 200, yet you're below the 50, and the 5 and 13 are in a sell mode. So if you wanted to look at the sell side, you could, but that's if we get up into these areas, you know, 47.91 to 48.33, or actually maybe this one would be one zone, 48.13 to 48.33. But anywhere in here, you can watch for a possible failure. And then as far as silver, so remember I gave you this one a while ago. This is the only one that really stood out because we had symmetry, we had a 618, we had an extension, and we had another symmetry projection from, I believe it was like this high to low, maybe to this high to low. From here. Actually, this high to low, from this high to low. And the actual low was made at, it looks like 71.31, directly within this zone. We're getting a bounce if we're going to get a full move, because this is going to be considered counter trend because of the 513 being in a sell mode. But if we continue to hold above here, potential target 1, 87.24, potential target 2, 91.58. Okay, if you want to look at the short side, oh, I just need to give you some symmetry above that. I'm actually going to look at a couple of these swings. Yeah, so there are areas on the way up to watch for a possible fail, like this one, 79.05 to 49. Keep an eye on that one. Yeah, I'm not sure which high I would use for an extension there. Anyway, as far as crude, the weekly chart, we did have 786 plus 100%, but this is the weekly continuous. It kind of, mucks up things when you get the rollover. So I don't always 100% trust these, but yeah, you can look at them still because you're not going to do anything unless it triggers, right? But we held that general area of the 618 retracement, and if we push through this next hurdle, 130.07 would be a target on the upside, and 143.53. Don't ever want to see that, okay? My car is still gas. Crude oil, daily chart. I like 98.08 to 98.72. I like 92.97 to 94.95 as a nice cluster, unless you want to break these down into two separate ones, which you can do. And then this would be 94.40 to 95. This one would be 92.97 to 93.56. Anyway, those are areas you can look at for possible support. And we got really close to target number one here, but it's we still haven't reached it. And then as far as TLT, so I did go ahead and run some timing. And with the histogram, if we use these smaller swings, it does give us timing May 4th through 6th for a possible bounce. But it would be considered counter trend because you're below the 200, you're below the 50, 5 and 13 are in a sell mode. If you wanted to look for a royal setup in TLT, what we would do is run the resistance for a possible short if we get the bounce. Okay? But let's see. That's that would be the smaller swing. Like the first area that would stand out for that would be 86.25 to 35. Okay, 86.25 to 35. Oops, 35. All right, and then other than that, everybody have a great weekend, and I'll see some of you on Sunday night.